Morning. My name is George Slocum, and I looked up the definition of a message and a sermon. A sermon says it's inspired, and a message, in this case, it was coerced. My message is smile. The fresh air is good for your teeth. I've been saying this I met Dale Zockerl back in December of 1965, and this was one of his statements that he said to me all the time. And, I've just felt that that's a good thing to go with from here on out, because when you smile, others smile with you. And so to get you in the right mood for smiling, I thought I would read you this joke that came from the Reader's Digest. Nick's mother stopped and listened for a moment as her son read the Bible to their cat. "Isn't that sweet?" she says. But an hour later, she heard a terrible racket. Running out the door, she finds Nick trying to dunk the cat in a bucket of water. "Nick, what are you doing?" "I'm baptizing Muffin," he says. "Well, but cats don't like to be in water." "Well, then he shouldn't have joined my church." Hopefully now you're smiling. I was born and raised in a small town of Crestview, Florida, U.S. Highway 90. Back then it was also known as, and it still is, as the Spanish Trail, because the Spaniards, as they traveled across the southern part of the world, or the U.S., that was the center that they came right straight through. I lived off of a block off of 90, and on that corner where Lloyd Street was, there were 3 garages on the corner. Lived most of my life right there, behind the Chevy garage, with a junkyard behind our home. It was a rental owned by the garage owner. My mother was a mechanic at the garage until she married my stepfather. His wife had died after birth of my youngest stepbrother. He had 7 children. Louise, who was married about the same age as my mother, Ruby also married, Preston, Betty, and Carlton, who was only 4 years older than me, and Elaine, who was 9 years older than me, and then David, who was 4 years younger. There was always 6 or more kids at home. We moved to a sharecropping farm. You've heard it, 40 acres and a mule. That's where we were. There was a dirt road about a mile long or so back to the 2 farms next to each other. We were the only farms back there. The next closest neighbor was about a mile and a half back through the woods. Our utilities? Kerosene lanterns, pump outside, and an outhouse. We didn't have much, but it was, we were together. We kids rode the bus out to the main road where we changed buses. We went to Crestview, and the other kids from the farm went to Laurel Hill. And my mother insisted that we go to Crestview, and I think it's because she realized that Eglin Air Force Base was only a little ways down the road from us, and all the people who worked at Eglin, for everyone who worked there, the school district got money, which made Crestview a much better school than Laurel Hill, which was another 15 miles up the road. I was in 1st grade. I don't remember my teacher's name, but I do remember what she did for me. I also remember what she said to the other teacher who got to watch her class. She got to watch her class. She said, "I may get into trouble for leaving the school, but he needs a new pair of shoes." Part of the time I went to school bare feet, and winter was coming. Matthew 25:36, Jesus said, "I was naked, and you clothed me." It was shortly after that we moved back to Crestview, and I went to a different elementary school. I guess sharecropping didn't work out. We moved back to the same house. Yay! Running water and an indoor toilet. If you haven't ever been there, you can appreciate it. Our house had a living room with a fireplace, the main source of our heat, a dining room, 2 beds, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and 1 bathroom. There was always 6 kids at home. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Across the street from the Chevy garage lived a family with 4 boys. They had a live-in nanny and a cleaning lady who came twice a week. In the South, most cleaning ladies were black. At that time, we used the word colored. She had 2 small boys under 6 who played with the 2 younger boys, and with the rest of us, we were in the mood to play with younger kids. One day my brother came home and he said, "The cleaning lady is no longer allowed to bring her boys to play." Quote, "We were told the boys are too old to play together." What changed from yesterday to today? I'll never know, and I still don't understand. Matthew 19:14 says, Jesus said, "Let all the little children come to me." Around the age of 11, I took over my brother's paper route. I delivered the Mobile Press Register. Mobile was approximately 100 miles west of Crestview. Therefore, only a few people with close ties subscribed to the Mobile paper. My route was over 6 miles, morning and afternoon. It was summer, it was hot, and as many of you know, it usually rains in the afternoon, and it becomes very humid. Now, if you had a cook or you went into a kitchen of a restaurant, chances are very good that there would be, quote, colored people in the kitchen. In my thought process, I guess, what's the difference from one restaurant to the next? I was collecting for my paper. The restaurant was a colored restaurant, and I noticed the ice cream cooler. As I said, it was hot, it was humid, it was summer. It was Borden's. Who remembers Elsie the cow from Borden's? I see a couple smiles out there. Okay. Well, I asked for a 5-cent ice cream cone. I did this for about a week. One day I was continuing on my route. I noticed a white man, in a pickup truck, who I knew. He was driving by in his pickup and looking at me very hard. I wondered why, but I forgot about it. 2 or 3 days later, my stepfather asked me if I had bought ice cream in a colored restaurant. I said, "Yes, sir." I was told very bluntly, under no circumstances, would I do that again, because if I did, I was going to get the whooping of my life. Explain that to me if you can. I mean, what difference did it make where you got the ice cream that you could get in any other store in town? I don't know. The restaurant was clean. The owner was nice. Although I would admit, the first time I brought ice cream, he did look surprised. I still bought ice cream, but I was always on the lookout, and if somebody was coming, instead of my ice cream being up here, I had it hid down behind a paper bag so nobody could see it. I didn't want to get a whooping. Now, this next part, I also got out of Reader's Digest, and it's a story, and I think you'll like the story because it's, a good story. So, almost 8 years ago, and the title of it's The Sunshine Mayor. Almost 8 years ago, Al Nixon decided to begin each morning from the bench with a spectacular view of the St. Petersburg, Florida waterfront. I called it Life's Rising because watching a sunrise makes me centered before starting my day, said Nixon, who works for the city's water department. A year later, a woman stopped to say hello, and she said something that changed his perspective on his daily ritual. She said, every morning I'm sitting there, I know that everything's going to be okay. Nixon recalled, that's when I knew I needed to pay attention to make eye contact and let people know that we mattered to each other. Instead of staring straight ahead at the waterfront, Nixon started smiling at people and striking up conversations. And pretty soon, more than a few early risers began joining him on the beach, sometimes unburdening themselves, asking for advice about relationships, careers, and personal problems. I was happy to them, Nixon 59 said. I wanted them to listen, to walk away, knowing that I didn't have to feel alone. When you're in the 50s and 60s or beyond, a lot of people feel their purpose hasn't been fulfilled. At this point in my life, this was definitely my purpose. Smile. Come on, smile. You'll feel better right now. See that? Don't you feel better instantly when you smile? Okay. So every morning, weather permitting, Nixon, who had 3 grown children and a long-term significant other, rises at 4:30. He puts on a fedora, sips a cup of coffee, then drives 7 miles to the waterfront, where he stays for 2 hours. His presence and his openness to listening have led some to nickname him the Sunshine Mayor. Al is this calm, constant presence, said Jeff Frazen, 64, a retired real estate developer who met Nixon while taking a walk along the waterfront a few years ago. His unique gift is that he listens to everyone. It's more than that, said Dee Glauer, who is in her late 50s. She met Nixon while strolling 3 years ago. He listens without judgment and without any kind of return expected. While most people simply wave or drop by briefly or make small talk, others are anxious to step into his office and spend a few minutes with someone who will listen. No matter what the problem a person wants to air, Nixon lends an ear. You have to have an open heart and an open head because you never know who's going to walk by and what they might need, Nixon said. Every person who stops by the bench deserves my undivided attention. He remembers the day a couple came by to talk about a problem in their relationship. The husband was always working, rarely home. Nixon said, "It was ruining their marriage." I told him, "My friend, if your wife's revelation didn't scare you, then maybe the possibility of losing her will." Nixon was right, the man admitted. He started to cry and agreed that he needed to slow down, said Nixon. We all hugged each other and we became friends after that. I still see them now and then over lunch. No topic is off limits, Nixon said, but some people still sit down and don't want to talk at all. They simply want to sit next to someone and share the silence. A woman stopped once and said, "I just want to sit here with you," he recalled. We stared at the water for an hour. Then she just said thank you and walked away. She just wanted a moment of peace and to know that she wasn't alone. At that moment, in that hour, on that morning, she truly wasn't. And that's the end of the story. But are we ever alone? Is God always with us? If you smile and say hello, it's amazing how many people will, smile back at you. I have a question for you. What's the longest word in the dictionary? Smiles, because there's a mile between the S's. I believe that God put us on this earth to take care of it, okay? Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. If you can smile and you can make someone happy, if you can make them feel just a little bit better, that's part of what we're here for. Now, because this is a message and not a sermon, it doesn't have to be long. Let us pray. Dear Lord,